Howdy folks, welcome to another episode of the Rifle Chair YouTube channel. Hope you're doing well. Today's video is going to be called The Descent into Modern Political Madness. The Descent into Political Madness is what I'm calling this video. And we're going to be going into why, going into reasons, but first I'll give you a 20,000 foot level view of what I mean by this descent into political madness. Recently I was, this whole thing kind of was spurned on. This video was spurned on by something that Brigadier General retired Chuck Yeager recently said in a tweet. And I'll read you the, he was asked a question and he answered it. I'll read you the question and I'll read you his response. So the question from a middle school teacher to Chuck Yeager. And if you don't know who Chuck Yeager is, get educated. He's a very special, incredible person. So the question is, I'm teaching technology, design, and engineering to middle school students. What message can I share from you to them? And his response is, figure out what can go wrong and fix it before it goes wrong. Simple as that. Find out what can go wrong and fix it before it goes wrong. So that's this is what tweaked me. This response, and so I'm making this video. I think it was inspired by Chuck Yeager. So descent into political madness. What do I really mean by that? Well, I'm going to refer to this as the foundation of this whole video is going to be based on modern liberalism. Okay? Now, those of you that are liberals out there, don't turn off the video. Just hear me out, okay? And try to keep an open mind. So, what is modern liberalism? I see it this way, okay? I see modern liberalism as being the reunification of church and state. Whoa! So many liberals aren't even like religious people. They don't go to church. They don't believe in God. In fact, a large number of them are atheists. So why am I saying that my idea of modern liberalism is the reunification of church and state? Well, continue listening and I'll try to explain it to you. So my argument is that modern liberalism is a form of religion wherein the state becomes a deity or a god-like phenomenon. Okay? So you're not going to church and praying to God. You're vetting your beliefs like a deity, or up to the Almighty, which is the government. Okay, and it's the state. And for conservatives and libertarians like me, that is like the worst nightmare come true. Alright? Is where we have an all-powerful state leading the people, governing the people. So I call modern liberalism a form of faith because they have an uncritical belief in the creed and that most people are not competent enough to make good, rational decisions. Like, for example, they don't like referendums. Okay, modern liberals do not like referendums because it's challenging the state. Okay, they don't like that. They want to defend the state. Because citizens can't be trusted to vet good decisions, right? It's the state that needs to make these decisions. The people can't be trusted to make them. The good life is government entitlements. All these benefits that you get from the government. Lots of people get more out of these entitlements than they put in. The big believers of the government use of force against its citizens. Big believer in that. And the entitlements to welfare, sexuality, drugs, and excusing criminal behavior. And what do I mean by that? Almost everything, to one extent or another, is excusable, is what that means. So, let's go into this. This is kind of the 20,000 foot level overview flight of what I see modern liberalism being, and almost a quasi-religion. Let's go into some details. Let's look at responsibility. Now, a modern liberal, their view of responsibility versus a conservative or a libertarian. And I'm kind of grouping conservatives and libertarians together. Traditional conservatism and traditional libertarianism, I'm grouping them together because there's so many commonalities between the two. All right, so let's look at the modern liberals' view of responsibility versus, say, a conservative or libertarian's view of responsibility. Now, if you're a liberal and if you're looking at things the way a conservative or a libertarian might look at things, then maybe you're not really a liberal. You just like to associate yourself with them. All right? So for me, as a conservative slash libertarian, I see responsibility for my choices as being my decision. So I am going to take responsibility and personal accountability for my choices. And if it doesn't work out well, I own it. Whether it's good or bad, it's my fault. Okay, it's my opportunity to learn from my bad decisions, and it's my opportunity to learn from them and to grow and to develop and become better. And try to avoid making those rash or poorly considered decisions in the first place. We'll avoid that. I take responsibility and I take personal accountability for my decisions. But the modern liberal is willing to excuse almost any behavior on the basis of that person's environment. So if somebody, let's say somebody gets charged with a criminal offense, but they grew up in a poor environment, or they grew up in a challenging environment. I mean, they are essentially the product of their environment. So it's the environment's fault, not the person who perpetrated that crime. You see where I'm getting? It's kind of deflecting of personal responsibility and accountability onto what? On the conditions upon that person was raised and brought up in. So rather than holding the individual responsible for their actions, they're looking at the social structure that that person exists in. It's the social structure's fault. And one of the reasons why modern liberals are so anti-U.S. like the United States of America, they have a constitution, and so many of these modern liberals want to see the various amendments in the Constitution affected or changed, because so many of these different portions of the U.S. Constitution are based on personal responsibility and accountability. And they don't like that. They don't like those freedoms. They want them changed. And this is a belief based on the re-engineering of society, utilizing all forms of government as the mechanism used to achieve that. Right? The all-power government that will save us. Because the government provides mutual support to all people. The government, this is the philosophy that the government is caring and compassionate. And no one needs to suffer. And the enabler for that is government resources. And this is an indication to me that modern liberals are completely blind to reality. You see, the road that they are taking and the choices that they are making, the choices that they have made, are not working. But they continue down the same road, the same path, believing that eventually things will change and they'll be proven right. But this really doesn't work, does it? I mean, it is essentially the definition of madness, is when you continue making the same mistakes, thinking that you're going to get a different outcome. Descent into political madness. Now, when you're dealing with people that are this close-minded, they have the blinders on. Now, I'm not saying that it's just modern liberals that suffer from this. I think it's a broad spectrum of people, but they just seem to be concentrated more in the liberal camp, or the Democratic Party camp. When you are confronted with these people, it creates an impasse, because you can't reason with these people. You can't use statistics, you can't use data, you can't use history to reason with them. Okay? You can't communicate with them because the blinders are on, they're turned off. You're shut out. You're just hitting your head against a concrete wall. Why? Why are they being so ignorant? It's because facing realities that exist outside of their own structural concept are too painful for them to accept, and so they turn themselves off. They're not going to get into the debate. Their minds are closed, their minds are shut, and nothing you can say will turn them around. The lemmings are headed towards the cliff. Might as well let them jump. And this is particularly true when you look at modern liberals and their economic policies. They're amongst the worst economic policies the world has ever seen. Look at the United States today with its debt load. All right, Bush Jr. didn't help really much in that, but Obama is unprecedented. Just the amount of uncontrolled spending we've seen from that president. I mean, let's look at Europe. Essentially all modern liberal democracies. The amount of debt load that is going on. The train wreck that is Europe. I mean, Brexit occurred for a reason. And if you don't know what Brexit is, again, please get yourself educated. Look at Italy, Spain, Portugal, and soon to be France, that are headed towards insolvency with the European Union. Modern liberals are the destroyers of economies and political culture. So this kind of begs the question, and is modern liberalism a diagnosable mental disorder? People that hold these ideas, these concepts, are often irrational. They make poor financial decisions, and quite often are disconnected from reality. They live in this make-believe fantasy world. And one might assume that these people are deranged to one extent or another, or at least disturbed to one extent or another. So yes, it is arguable that modern liberalism is a diagnosable mental illness. Let's look at families. Okay? The modern liberal will tell you that the traditional family is broken. Okay, having a mother and a father and children, that unit no longer, that traditional family no longer really applies to today. Because now it takes a village to raise a child. You know, a mom and a dad, well, homeschooling, that old traditional kind of idea of raising your child to have good common sense, ethics, worldly knowledge. That model doesn't really apply to today's modern family. And that it takes a village to raise a family. Your school is raising your family. The government is now raising your family. I mean, just recently, the traditional family was attacked by the Liberals' plans to make spanking an illegal act. I don't know if it's going to be like a ticketable offense, or they're going to take your children away if you discipline your children. That's the kind of involvement that is the modern family now, right? The traditional family values are out. Fatherless families are replaced by the state. Generally, the traditional family, the father is the breadwinner. And not saying that this really applies too much today with the mother that stays home and raises the kids and feeds them and does the house care and stuff like that. That's totally out the window now. And now mothers, they go to work. I mean, we have to, right? So we have other people raising our children for us, because we need to go to work. We pay huge taxes. Our daycare costs are through the roof. Other people are spending more time with their kids than we are. We can't afford to raise our own kids anymore. That's the modern reality. Traditional families are under attack, big league. So, who is the modern liberal? Now, it might be unfair to refer to all liberals as modern liberals. Yeah, when I say a modern liberal, I'm essentially referring to a radical liberal. But I think that kind of the radical liberal, the modern liberal, is becoming more mainstream than we've ever seen before. So that's what I'm going to talk about now. Who is the modern liberal today? So the modern liberal is somebody who has had great personal difficulty in their own personal life. They've tried to circumvent problems in their lives. But the obstacles were found to be too great. They were unsuccessful. But liberalism becomes a form of therapy. And the answer to these roadblocks that they've been unable to circumvent or cross on their own, they've been able to do so with the assistance of the state. And they support the state because the state will take care of them. All right? The benefits that they get from the state outweigh than if they were to take any kind of manageable risk and venture forward individually to take care of these things. Get the self-confidence and the skills, the motivation to succeed. Why do that when the state is there for you to do it for you anyway? Well, let's look a little bit at, let's assume that modern liberals get their way. What would happen? Would anything really bad happen? Well, in my opinion, yeah. Yeah, I think there would be a bit of a problem. I think there would be a couple of things happening. I think you will see that the rule of law is not applied equally to all people. You will see a political class that receive preferential treatment, like the Hillary Clintons in the world. She can do no harm. Right? The law just simply doesn't apply to her. So it's already starting. It's already starting. And you'll see class warfare. So you get the preferential treatment. The law is not always applied evenly or consistently to all citizens. And then you'll also get class warfare, which is the have-nots at war with the haves. Okay? So the poor, or minorities possibly even, versus the majority and the middle class. See, I kind of look at it this way. Let's say we've got an empty wagon and it's being pulled by 100 people. Now, you're going to take off a certain percentage of those 100 people. Let's say 10%, maybe 15%, because they're the old, the sick, and the elderly. Okay, we're going to put those people in the wagon. Now we've got the remaining 85% of society that's pulling the wagon. The wagon is still pretty light. Okay? Now we've got people that are the deviants of society. Let's put them that way. These are the criminals, and these are the people that don't have a good moral background. Okay? Let's call that 20%. So we're going to take 20% of that, and we're going to throw them in the back of the wagon. Well, the remainder is still trying to pull that wagon, but now the wagon's starting to get heavier and heavier. Okay, now let's take people that just don't want to have jobs. Okay, they're just going to sit on the dole. They're going to collect welfare checks. They're going to kind of work under the table. Okay, they're not going to contribute to taxes. Let's say that 50% of those people that are left fall within that category. I'm going to throw them in the wagon too. I'm not very good at math, but I'm going to tell you right now that it's going to be pretty hard for the remainder of those people that are pulling the wagon to actually make any headway. The wagon is heavy, very, very heavy. And you have to ask yourself, at what point in time do those people just give up? Those people are the middle class. Okay? And they're busting their asses. And the wagon is slowing right down. We got to get the economy going back again, folks. We got to get the economy going again. Get people back to work. And stop giving them so many incentives not to. Now, going back to that Chuck Yeager quote. Figure out what can go wrong and fix it before it goes wrong. Can this modern liberal phenomenon be fixed? I think so. I think it can be fixed. But what it requires is a shock and awe. We need some shock and awe to wake these people up. Okay? We need these people to face reality, to wake up. And that might mean having to give them a little slap. These people need to realize that the beliefs of modern liberalism collide with reality. And it doesn't work. I don't think most of these people are going to wake up and until they're literally destitute. Kind of like a drug addict that has destroyed their life for that one more fix. Right? They're just going to keep doing it until they're rock bottom. Or a raging alcoholic. He's lost everything. Right? Because he wants his problems in the world to disappear rather than face reality. Okay? I don't think most of these modern liberals will wake up until they're in that place. But the problem is, so many of them, is that they're going to take us down with them. Okay? It's not going to be good. So I think that, yeah, it can happen, but we got to have some kind of a shock and awe situation that just wakes them up. Give them a good slap. Make them realize they're living in a fantasy world. And if we don't, that is our future. And the United States is already well headed down that path. Europe is already there. Okay? And the growing dysfunction of their societies is prevalent. Even now where the leaders of those countries, Germany, for example, Merkel just told her people, make sure you've got at least a week of water and food and rations in your house because of the civil unrest. Without rule of law. Raging crowds of these people running down the streets with bats, beating the crap out of people. You know, uncontrolled immigration. The loss of society, order, rule of law, liberty. They've arrived at a society of dysfunction and chaos. And that's where they are now. And that's where modern liberalism will take us if we don't do something about it. We are faced with a real and inherent danger. Do you know what idolatry means? Here, I'll read you a definition. Idolatry, the worship of an idol or a physical object as a representation of God. Now, my argument is that modern liberalism views the state as that deity or that God. Now, you can sit there and pray to the invisible man in the sky, to whatever God you actually pray to. Chances are your prayers may or may not result in the resources that you're asking for. But banging on your MP's door and asking, demanding resources, that achieves results, doesn't it? Campaigning for liberal democratic parties and demonizing and attacking any opposition to them. What we've seen in Canada, in Europe, especially lately in the United States, at these Trump rallies that are being physically attacked by modern liberals. They are being physically assaulted because they're going to these Trump rallies. They're being demonized as racists when they're out just searching for some political answers. Okay? It's a constitutional right to association to go out and look at, what's this guy talking about? I'm going to get demonized for going out to one of his rallies? Really? Man, oh man. I mean, after all, they actually will provide me with what I need. This is the modern liberal. They'll actually provide me with what I need. God doesn't respond to my prayers, but the Democrats and the Liberal Party will. So I want the separation of church and state. I don't want modern liberals to be in power. I mean, just listen to the way Obama speaks. He sounds more like a preacher than a president. He's a radical liberal. And his disconnection from reality, his disconnection from economics, is famous. But his church continues to grow. This is Rifle Chair signing off. Hope you're all doing well. As always, Maple Leaf up.